Hi, everybody. Welcome to ZTV Live. Today is Tuesday, September 8th, 2020. I'm Susan Mulligan Fleischman, and I'm so pleased that you're here with us tonight. Tonight, Ralph Peluso is back with Reading, Writing, and Ralph, and Ralph's guest is Rebecca Rose, who just wrote a book called Love, Politics, and The Art of Survival, I believe, book one. I apologize, Rebecca, if I messed up the title, but we'll get to that in 1 minute. And I'm not going to do a word from our sponsor tonight, but I am going to tell you that the September issue of The Zebra is in newsstands now and everywhere you love to get your favorite free newspaper in Alexandria. And as you can see on the cover, there's a special story in here about honeybees. And it's so interesting, and it's a very really beautiful spread all about the honeybees. Our designer did an amazing job with it. But it's just one of lots of wonderful stories in an issue just jam-packed with information for you, as well as all of our wonderful advertisers like Yates. So please, in addition to reading our newspaper, we would love it if you could let our advertisers know that you saw their ad in the newspaper and how much you appreciate them, and just spread the love that we try to show them as well. It would really make their day and make our day as well, because we are a free newspaper, and so that's how we stay alive is through advertising. So we appreciate all your efforts there. Paige Etheridge says hello. Hi, Paige. Thank you so much for chiming in. Anybody else want to say hello? We always love to hear from our fans, and I'm going to go ahead and introduce Ralph Peluso on screen. Hi, Ralph. Welcome back.
Hi, Susan. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous. It's
That's good.
Another episode of Reading, Writing, and Ralph, and I have a hello today for two of my dearest friends, the nicest young ladies you'd ever want to meet from Bridgeville, Delaware, Shelley and Kelly Brandt. They're regular viewers. So hi, Shelley. Hi, Kelly. How you guys
Shelley.
doing?
Hi, Kelly. Yay. That's great.
Tonight's guest, Rebecca Rose. Fantastic young author with a novel about family dysfunctionality. So this will be a very interesting topic for our readers. So,
well, for those people who have family dysfunction, right? Just
kidding.
None of us. Yeah, right. That's right. I will. Well, that's great. Hi, Rebecca. Welcome to ZTV. You're on the scene.
Hi. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Good.
Great.
Good. Well, Ralph, I'm going to let you take it away.
Hi. So, Rebecca, the one thing we know is that we share a common love, the New York Yankees.
Oh, yes. Yankees will always be my first favorite team. I'm from Long Island, New York. I went to school in the Bronx at Fordham.
Right. I grew up in the Bronx, and I went to school in the shadows of Yankee Stadium at Cardinal Hayes High School. I'm glad they're not playing baseball this year. So.
Me too.
But anyway, I'd like the fans to know a little bit about you. So tell us about your background, how you got into writing, and how you chose the topic of a dysfunctional family in a political setting.
Sure. So I'm from Long Island, New York. I currently live in the Washington, D.C. area with my husband and our two daughters. And I started writing, gosh, you have to ask my mom, probably kindergarten. I came home with stories about animals and stuff like that. And then I started getting into journalism in junior high and high school and college. And I just had this book idea that came to me literally in a dream. I was about 14 or 15 when I came to this idea. And it just took off from there as I got older and matured, and my writing style became what it was. So it's really been a years in the making process.
Well, so even as a child, where did you draw the inspiration from? I mean, that young.
Well, it's certainly a gift from God, being able to do so. And I really wanted to focus on a brother and sister. So we have our characters, Danny and Cassandra. And, a lot of people ask me about the character of Adam, who's quite a love interest in the story. And I think he was my clearest character, my clearest inspiration. I just said, you know what? How do I write a godly, ideal, perfect young man? So he's been the constant probably through my whole writing process.
A perfect, yeah. He was a pretty good guy. I'm not sure perfect, but he's a pretty good guy. But, families are complicated, right?
Oh, yeah.
So there's a lot of ways you can go with this. And you chose an overbearing government with a political family. Any particular political family you were thinking of at the time?
So, I mean, who doesn't think of the Kennedys when they think of political families? As I was writing these drafts, I was also thinking of the Eisenhowers and the Nixons, especially with the overlap between the Eisenhowers and the Nixons, with marrying into each other's families. Certainly the Roosevelts as well, especially Teddy Roosevelt's family.
Yeah, and you've got the Bushes and you've got the Clintons and so on and so on. And I just recently, one of the Kennedys lost I didn't think they were still running, but I guess lost in an election.
First time in Massachusetts.
First time in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
The other theme that was in your book, you had numerous, not only love interests, but you sort of had, love triangles and love combinations. So you had, let's start with the first one. Gregory, George, and Maria.
Yes. So Gregory and George are brothers. I remember thinking, why do they have such similar names? And I was like, well, it's because of a family thing, which I'll get to in a separate book. But they are both, of course, in love with the same woman. And she has to make a choice. Which man does she go with? Does she go with the more, has a more stable job, more stable aspirations? And that's ultimately who she chooses. She and her husband, George, are married at the beginning of the book, and they have been for several years. But readers can tell, as I picked up you did, that there is some tension, some romantic tension between Maria and her brother-in-law, Gregory, and that there has been for years before the book even takes place. So this is something I'm excited to hear that readers have spoken up about and be like, how involving was that love interest? Did it come about in any way? Did it produce children? Is it some grandiose affair? It's something I'm still building on for future books, but I'm really excited to hear how readers are picking up on it and have the tension as one of the familial tensions for this series.
Yeah, you did a great job exactly building that dynamic of tension in that. And, some of the things, that crossed my mind when I read it is behind their back and to his face, they would always say to George, she chose the wrong brother. And the other thing I took from it is that Maria's relationship with Gregory predated George. I don't think they overlapped. Maybe they did. And the question is, so who's Danny's father?
It's funny because that's one of those things where it's like, oh, you want to know? I can't wait to find out myself. That's something that is still being worked out, and I can't wait to address in future books. That's one of the things in the 14 years that I've been writing this, that's one of the things that's gone over in my mind so many times. So, like I said, glad the readers want to hear more about it.
Yeah, I certainly want to find out more. Now that I'm committed to that relationship. I'd like to know. The other, not even a triangle, it was more like a quadrangle relationship, was Scott Adam Cassandra Scott. The three of them. So,
yes.
Well, let's start with the first one, Scott Adam. Very close friends.
So there's kind of history between them. Something I really hope to even just hint at, to be emphasized in future part of the series, is that there's a lot about appearances in how families are supposed to interact. So Scott's family would not have interacted kindly with Adam's family. So there's a lot of tension there. Scott is best friends with Howard. Adam is best friends with Danny. Everybody kind of stays in their lane. And if they don't, that's where issues really arise. So I think it's interesting how people would pick up on that tension if they regard it as, okay, definitely those families are not supposed to interact, or those families are not supposed to interact, so how have they interacted in other ways? So that's definitely something that very much gets addressed in the second book, but I'm definitely glad you picked up on it in this book.
Well, when people aren't supposed to interact, but people and members of the families are drawn to each other, just like Romeo and Juliet, they find other ways to interact behind the scenes.
Oh,
so
yeah.
the sense was there's something behind the scenes there between those two. Of course, Adam Cassandra, that's a relationship in the open.
Oh, yes.
Talk about that one.
That was a wonderful relationship to craft, because like I said, when I was trying to figure out how I'm going to write Adam, and my friends asked me, oh, is Adam named after your husband? Because my husband's name is Adam. And I was like, no, this character predates him by about 10 years. But, you know, when in writing Adam, I was just trying to write, you know, who is an ideal young man? Who strives to be the perfect friend, the perfect boyfriend, who can't be perfect, because none of us are perfect, but is still like a Christ-like figure in that regard. So I really wanted two people who cared about each other. When I was first writing Adam and Cassandra, I was like, how romantic do I make them? You know, how clear is it that they're a couple? And it ultimately is clear that they're a couple. But just I wanted it to be friendship as well as romance.
Well, clearly they're a couple, but then we get into a very tense situation where Cassandra is abducted by the government, and she's put into a cell, and Scott comes to her aid as a knight in shining armor, and they shared a moment or two. And you almost felt as she was going to go a different way, but then she didn't. So what were you thinking with that one?
Oh, that was like my favorite scene to write. I'd be talking to my friends about it, and I'd be like, what was your favorite scene? That's my favorite scene. I don't know if in the series, but certainly in the book, because I think it really, readers can pick up on it and wonder more. It's because it's not just this simple, Cassandra and Adam are in love, and they have plans for their lives. It's that Cassandra and Scott interact in a particular way. And I think what I wanted to make more besides, were they flirting with each other, is they're interacting with each other in such a way that's just how human beings should treat each other in times of distress. So that's another way where, let the reader interpret what they wish. I certainly have my idea of where I went with that scene, but, above all, I wanted people to take away from it that, it's a moment of someone being nice to each other.
Yeah. It was, yes, I think that had a lot to do with it. When you get into tense situations and you have that, you do start to connect in a more emotional way. So my next favorite couple relationship is Adam and Danny.
Oh, yeah.
And how close were they?
They're best friends, and they're close because there's a lot of tragedy in the prologue. I remember someone messaged me, and she's like, oh my gosh, this heartbreaking tragedy. I was kind of like, get ready, this is what this book's about. But the prologue sets up about how tragic Adam's life was up until this point of when the book starts. And the Whitfield family was really there for them. And because he and Danny were so close in age, Danny's become his best friend. But Adam is also a buffer for Danny between George, who is Danny's father, well, his father, you know what I mean, and how that father-son relationship works. Adam's kind of everybody's, the middleman and the moderator for everybody. Because Adam's very close with George. George is his godfather, is his boss. They have a close relationship. But Danny and George have a tense relationship. for political, goals and ideations. So Adam's kind of like to the other what the other can't be. So Adam is, in a sense, George's son in the way Danny can't be.
Wow. Very interesting. And of course, the final one and we could bring up other ones if you'd like.
Sure.
It was the brief encounter between Danny and Samantha.
Oh yeah.
That period, what flashed through my mind, as wild as it is, was the first vacation with Chevy Chase.
Yes, right.
Christy Brinkley, or a flyby. That kind of a brief encounter. But go.
Yeah. So I kind of set them up because, like, if you get to this part of the book, you know that family needs some good in their lives. Especially because Danny is having to go on to other paths now, deciding what he's going to do with his life, especially given the circumstances that the family has been placed in the first book. So it's like, okay, his life is changing so much. Here's his opportunity to meet someone. And it's like, is he going to let her go and just say, you know what, that's a nice part of my life? Or is he going to put himself out there and be like, you know what, this is someone who I met because she came into my bookstore a couple days a week, and like, should I say something to her? So like, that's something that, people romantically meet that way and have that consideration all the time. But when you add family drama and family dynamic to it, and their relationship is initially impacted by his family name as well, it's kind of a cool mix between, okay, this is how people meet and date each other, and well, this is how it's affected by all this political drama.
Right. And a political drama, family drama are always filled with certain elements that we face every day, right?
Yeah.
Within our families, or most of our families, or if you say you don't have it, you're probably blind to it. Failure and fear.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Speak to that.
Sure. So I think that's best represented in George as he tries to. So initially, when he doesn't have all this family drama, or family drama in a much different context, his fear is to fail career-wise. He has all these political aspirations. He wants to be president someday. He's worked in their Senate. He's worked in their House of Delegates. He has a cabinet position. So, and then he's got his brother and his brother-in-law and his son, who are not exactly of the same political mind. I'm sure we all know someone like that. But then as the stakes get higher, his sense of failure is, if I don't, like, on the outside, it's okay, I got to do my job to keep my job. But deep down, it's, I got to do my job so that my family doesn't get killed off, so that my family we don't get separated from each other, so that we don't have to, like, become refugees. So the fear of failure is that it's okay, I want to be president, and let's make sure I can get there, to, well, I don't want my son being, taken away and murdered in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Well, I think every family in America is facing fear, in today's world with the COVID-19.
Oh, yeah.
Will I have a job tomorrow? Will I be able to provide for my family? So, and then in families, you get, one person does much better than the other, and you mm-hmm. get, oh my God, am I a failure? Does the family look at me differently?
Yeah.
And then revenge and vendetta, right?
Yes.
I've seen families torn apart on getting even, right? So tell us about your thoughts there.
So it's, book one, it's on the Whitfield family. So it's called, like, a Whitfield family narrative, and this is book one. And the kind of, like, one-upping each other is not just, Maria married George. It's Gregory is best friends with Maria's brother Thomas. And they have this sense that, like, George is so too much stuck in this sense of power in this political world that like he's a failure as a father and a husband for it. So how do we one up him as far as like, oh, Maria should have married Gregory? So that's kind of like the one upping in this book, and it really takes near tragedies and tragedies for George and Gregory to be like, all right, let's bury the hatchet and try to, you know, not exact revenge on each other. I will use this as a way to, you know, plug book 2, is that gets explored so much more in the second book. I'm a big fan of flashbacks, and the second book has a lot of that. And you see why the villains in this story are exactly the way they are. It's like, wow, the revenge that's on people's mind, like,
it's crazy.
Yeah, it's how they get back at each other on, you know, you married the woman I loved, so here's how this is gonna go.
Yeah, well, that should unfold in the next book, I guess.
Oh yes.
Power and corruption. You know, the power to that sits outside the family by an overarching government that can just rip family apart, just have massive cover-ups, and just come in, you know, with no sense of guilt and steal their assets. Speak to that, and how did you get to that? Because that's such a tough topic.
So I think that's it sounds sensational in a lot of ways, but like that's what makes for heavy drama, right? Is really putting this family through the ringer as much as possible and seeing how they come out of it. So it you know, it kind of it sees what it brings out in them. Like, I think it does take a tragedy for the family to really come together and keep coming together as they do. And it also, like, the seizing of assets and the idea of social credit standing, it kind of provides a context to this country and how high the stakes are. So it's not just like, oh, I want to keep my job or I want to be president. It's like, if you're on the wrong side of power one day, you know, who knows what's going to happen to you the next day.
Oh, exactly. And that's where you loop right back to fear.
Yeah.
So that's great. So what I'd like to do now is switch to the character association game. And for the fans out there, Rebecca has had the screenplay for this work in mind since she was 14 years old.
Yeah.
So tonight's association game is going to be who will play the part. And and when she first brought that up, we each created a list, and it was pretty interesting. So, and we have trivia questions to go along with this. And the first trivia question of the night is, who played Jean Valjean in the most recent movie version of Les Miserables? First one to get that will get an autographed copy of Love, Politics, and Survival. So, first character we'll talk about is George, and we both concluded that it would be played by Ralph Fiennes.
Oh yes, there was never anybody else in my mind.
But you liken the character to Atticus Finch, so why not Gregory Peck?
That's a good question. I guess, you know, shout out to my friend, the Bowfinger twins. Ray Fiennes has always been, like, our favorite actor. So I think even just subconsciously in my mind, he was who I was thinking of. Yeah. Kind of just, you know, Ray Fiennes is my modern-day favorite actor, so.
Yeah, he was, when I saw the brothers and the interactions in that, and one's a little bit younger, maybe the age spread between Ralph and Joseph Fiennes is greater than the characters in the book. But with Gregory, we both concluded it would be Joseph Fiennes. Right?
Yes, and I had a lot more, like, it was a tougher decision to see who would play whom, But you and I were both like, you know what? Might as well go with the brothers.
The
Brothers playing brothers. They look alike too, so that that's
they
believable.
They do. Ralph's a little bit older, but
yes, a little bit.
But it's amazing that those two popped in for those two characters, and we could have had a lot of other brothers in there, but specifically those two, and maybe it was the characters that they played. Yeah. And of course, now we get to Danny, and you had him being played by
Keen Johnson, which is a very interesting way to. I always get hung up on how to pronounce his name, but he was in the. I think it was a remake of Midway.
Mm-hmm.
I loved the casting in that movie, so that gave me a lot of ideas.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Now, from a character perspective, you likened him to Enjolras in
Enjolras and Marius.
Yeah, right. But you didn't choose Aaron Tveit, right?
No, Aaron Tveit's like a TV actor, and he's kind of too much of a pretty boy for me anyway. So I don't know. He wasn't. The idea of him wasn't doing it for me. Originally, in my mind, the first face that came to my mind, he's far too old now, is Jake Gyllenhaal in that movie where I'm blanking on the name. One of his first movies, though. That's initially the first person that came to mind. But
oh, wow.
Jake Gyllenhaal's too old now, so.
See, I thought of the character relating to John Rayburn in Bloodline.
Yeah, I love that show.
But not played by Kyle Chandler, played by Danny Rayburn's character, Ben Mendelsohn.
I love Ben Mendelsohn.
So
he's one of my favorite actors. He was my favorite part of Rogue One. Ben Mendelsohn.
Yeah, he's pretty good. Do we have a winner on the trivia question yet?
We do have a winner, and it is Michelle Rogers. So congratulations, Michelle.
Cool.
Yeah.
Michelle
she said Hugh.
There.
I know, and the answer was Hugh Jackman who played Jean Valjean in the most recent film version of Les Mis.
He was nominated for that.
Yeah.
Yes, he was.
And Michelle also said Damien Bonnard. Is that an actor? I'm sorry, I apologize. I don't know who that is, but maybe somebody to play one of the characters you were talking about. Do you know who Damien Bonnard is?
I will have to look into that.
Yeah. And maybe Michelle can. Sorry, Michelle.
I'll be in touch with Michelle about that. I love getting each other's ideas. So
wow.
Good.
All right. So the second trivia question is which head of one of the 5 New York City crime families served as Mario Puzo's inspiration for Emilio Barzini?
Trying to process that question in my mind.
All right. So Emilio Barzini was Vito Corleone's nemesis, and he sat behind the scenes. And the reason we bring him up is one of the characters, Carl, very powerful, sits in the background. When I was reading your book and thinking about this, he came immediately to mind. And you thought of Kenneth Branagh.
Yes.
So, yeah. So tell us why you chose Kenneth Branagh.
I'll admit, another favorite actor of mine that I was like, oh, yes, I have a role for him. There's this show on, I think it was on the BBC, Whitlander. He's kind of like this disheveled detective who should be successful but has a lot going on. And that's kind of like this character. I was like, okay, I have this character. He's a good friend. He's really loyal. He's good at his job. We got to give him a character flaw. And It's like, well, he sleeps around. So it's like, how is he going to reconcile that with having a family? So I kind of wanted, and especially as the events unfold in the first book for him, even though he's kind of in the background, there is definitely a way in which it affects him. He takes on that disheveled and stressed out and has a lot going on perspective.
All right. Yeah. Now, Barzini, as you know, sat behind and he moved the other pieces around the chessboard while he tried to position to
Yeah.
overthrow the Corleone family.
I was like, this poor guy, he just wants to do his job at the Treasury, but he has this habit he can't kick, and people are using it to blackmail him now. So he's got to figure himself out.
Do we have a winner on that question?
We do have a winner. Sam Ledoux is the winner, and he said Vito Genovese. So
he's absolutely
my friend Sam. Hi, Sam.
Congratulations, Sam.
That's a great guess.
Send us your address. Oh, do you have his address, Rebecca? Then he wouldn't have to send it if you.
I do.
Okay, fantastic. Great. Good. Congratulations. Thank you so much for playing. Okay, everybody else, pay attention. Okay, keep going.
So the next trivia question is which movies did Christopher Waltz win Academy Awards for? So, and of course that gets us to the next character.
Sure.
Edward. So you picked your favorite, Christopher Waltz, because he's a genius evil guy, right?
Oh yeah, that's my hill to die on, I say. It's probably more so than Ralph Fiennes as George. Christoph Waltz as Edward Roth is, and who comes to mind, you and I are talking about this, is Colonel Hans Landa from Inglourious Bastards, but not as funny or charming.
Right.
You know, he's got kind of some wit to him at the end of the movie. No charm to him. And if he is charming, it's in the sense of like a predator toying with his prey. But that character was like the and I told you this too, the ways in which we go into his character in the second book, like he's a villain, all right. Like
he's evil, and the first person that crossed my mind was Jack Nicholson playing Frank Costello in The Departed, and then the more I thought about that, and as I went through this analysis, I thought about Captain Mark McCluskey, who played the police captain in The Godfather that beat the crap out of Michael Corleone. Because, you know, you've got scenes in that book where he beats up on Danny, right? And so I pictured a big guy that was kind of powerful, but it's interesting how we can come up with these characters. And do we have a winner on that one?
No, not yet.
Really? I thought this was an easy one.
I thought that was an easy one, yeah.
Yeah, right?
Wow. So let's talk about Maria.
Sure.
So your pick was the lovely Juliette Binoche.
Yes, and partly because, again, talking about those Bill Finger twins, our favorite movie to watch together was The English Patient. Mm. And even though they're not each other's love interests in that movie, Juliette Binoche and Ralph Fiennes, they're still in that movie together, and I think they've got pretty good chemistry, even though Ralph Fiennes is like, his whole body is burned up. But I just love the way each of them acts, both in their scenes together and not together. And like, this woman has such like I've gone back and forth, like, okay, I want to portray her as a strong woman who doesn't want to show her children, even though 2 of the 3 of them are adult children, the stress she's under, but also, you know, how she's going to be there for her husband, how she kind of keeps her brother at bay, how she tries to interact with her brother-in-law, who she's had some romantic history with.
Wow. So
she, you know, she's definitely a matriarch type of figure. I've gone back and forth with how much to do with her. She's got a major role in the end of the second book and in the third book. We'll kind of see what happens from there. But, you know, at first I was like, she's just going to be in the corner in the background. I was like, you know what? I have a lot of male characters with strong attributes. I should create another strong female character there.
And you liked her better than Laura Dern.
That, you know what? It's funny that you mentioned that, because like, when you put that down, I was like, oh, that's actually one I should put on the list. Michelle Farley from and Hope Davis are also ideas for like women of that age, like Carl's wife.
Yeah, Michelle Farley is fabulous as Caitlin Stark.
Oh yes.
She didn't even last a season.
I know.
But it's too bad. Do we have a winner on that?
Well, we have Michelle Rogers gave one of the movies, not two. So I don't know if you want to hang in there a little bit.
We'll hang for a couple of more minutes.
Other people. Let's repeat the question. Repeat the trivia question.
This we thought was the easiest one.
Yeah.
Which
like hands down
movies did Christopher Waltz win Academy Awards for?
We could give it. You want to give a hint? They're both Quentin Tarantino films.
Yeah, they're both Tarantino films.
That's a good hint. Yeah.
Yeah. One of them.
Rebecca already mentioned.
Yes, and he was like, I remember reading trivia about him. I love reading film trivia in case that wasn't obvious. Is that he won so many awards for that film.
So when is
he did? I'll just interrupt. We did get. She came up. Michelle Rogers again won that one with Django Unchained and Inglourious Bastards.
Yes.
And I even showed the great gift that you had, Ralph, of Waltz doing that look from Inglourious Bastards. So that was great.
That was a photo from Rebecca. Rebecca, when is the next book coming out?
I'm glad you asked. So it is also going to be published with Solstice, and it's in the process of being edited. It is a bit longer than the first book. I hope it's an easier read, so hopefully that should take a few months. Sometimes the process does take a little while, especially with longer books. But yeah, hoping in the next few months.
Good. I look forward to reading the next one.
Thank you so much.
This was a very entertaining book. It's deep. You have to pay attention to the words.
Oh yes, I would agree there.
And you're a fabulous guest, and let's root for those Yankees to improve the balance of this season.
Yes, I have my best friend Mike Troiano is a huge Yankee fan.
Good. There's a lot. I do a bit of traveling, of course, and I read an article that said no matter where you go, 10% of the people wear Yankee paraphernalia. So even when I was in Nepal a year ago, I started counting, and of course it holds true.
Wow.
It's just amazing. So
the most well-known team in the world, probably.
It is. Well, thank you very much. This was quite entertaining and quite informational for the people. And, dysfunction within families is with us every day. And sometimes it's difficult. But thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much. This was quite the pleasure.
Good, great. Well, thank you, Ralph. Thank you, Rebecca. And you can't spell dysfunctional without fun. So that's family fun, right? So anyway, thank you so much for the wonderful conversation, and thank you, audience, for chiming in and answering the questions. And congratulations to Sam and Michelle for winning the books. And we will wish Rebecca and Ralph good night for now. Please come back here and go ahead, Ralph. Yes.
In 2 weeks, our next guest, for everybody who's been quarantined and sheltering in place and whining about it, we have Nancy Bauer's wonderful wine guide to Virginia wineries. And she'll be on, and she's got some great stories associated with those wineries, and it's going to be a fun listen. So no whining in 2 weeks.
Or at least get some cheese to go with that wine if they're going to do that, right?
If you're going to wine, they have the cheese.
Good. Right. I'm glad. And I just put the photo of her book up there. So I'm glad we got that in, Ralph. Thank you so much. Okay, and that will definitely do it for us for tonight. Please tune in tomorrow night when we have Gina Cavallaro, our host, will be interviewing Monty Durham from the Say Yes to the Dress Atlanta, and Monty is about to open up his new salon in Old Town this Saturday. So be sure to tune in tomorrow night for that show. That should be definitely entertaining. And then Thursday night, it's Virginia Amos' show, and she is thrilled to welcome John Porter, a longtime Alexandria resident, and he was T.C. Williams principal for over 20 20 years. He was one of the founders and developers of Act for Alexandria, and he is an Alexandria living legend. So don't miss that show on Thursday night either. And until we see you again tomorrow night, remember to be kind and to be the good news in someone's life.